Ahaan was the champion of the tournament, 17th SKB tournament. Let me take you through all his games, all the 6 games from his tournament. We'll just run through the games and see how he was able to win all of his 6 games. In the first round, he was playing against Adrit. Adrit started with d4, Ahaan replied d5, pawn forward, c4. So it's queen's pawn opening, and b3, knight out, bishop d2, bishop e7, a4, c5. c5 is challenging the sender. It's possible because white has played bishop d2. Now bishop d3, knight c6, knight f3, castles, castles. Pawn takes, pawn takes, pawn takes, bishop takes, knight takes. So basically here Ahaan won a pawn because in this position after castles, white had to take here. One of these pawns white had to take before castling. Because after castling, there's no chance for white because pawn takes, bishop takes. And again, this bishop is the problem. Knight e5, knight f5, f4, bishop d6, bishop c3, and there we have a fork. So this is how Ahaan won the exchange. And from here, it should not be a difficult conversion, just an exchange, just exchange of pieces and stop any counter play from opponent. And we have another fork, and this is how we won the queen. Here, Adrit resigned. This was his first round. Second round, he was facing Advait. Ahaan is white. E4, E5, knight out, bishop C4, bishop C5, C3, knight F6, D4. This is all the normal Gigo piano line. So this is one side line in the Gigo piano. Here, black has to play D5. Advait does that. Bishop B5, knight E4. Pawn takes, bishop B4. As you can see, Ahaan has already targeted the C6 pawn. And because bishop came to this square, this bishop is actually pretty useless, at least for some time. Apart from defending that pawn, it's not doing anything else. Knight b3, and he's heading for the c5 square, at least controlling c5 square. A3, and here a5 seems to be a mistake, isn't it? Because after a3, the bishop is trapped. Yeah, black has got a4. Pawn takes, queen takes, and here Ahaan wins a pawn. The mistake was pawn a5, taking away the square for the bishop. Rook a7. So Advait is preparing to get his rook to a8 and enter on this file. Ahaan plays queen c3. He is getting ready to play queen c5, I suppose. b3 played by Ahaan. Rook a2. Black has got some counterplay, but it's not much. Bishop a6. Rook e1. And here he blunders the pawn. So instead of playing h6, black had to play bishop b5 to defend the pawn, right? Instead he gives it up. So now even the c7 pawn is hanging. So basically Advait was thinking when white takes there, black will take here. And then when white takes it, black will take here. The resulting position seems equal. But since Ahaan is already up a pawn. Oh, wait a second. It's not up a pawn. So after queen takes pawn, Advait was planning queen takes here, but Ahaan is now attacking the rook. So this is actually a free pawn. And that is how here Advait blundered queen takes pawn and the rook is gone. King moves, queen takes pawn, bishop e2, queen e4, king moves, and the piece is also gone. Rook takes, and now there's just a matter of it's actually checkmate. Right? So this was the second round. Here he won a pawn first and then a rook. Third round he was black against Asmi. e5, knight out, bishop, h6. Oh, Ahaan was white. So Asmi plays h6. Ahaan plays d4, pawn takes, knight takes, queen f6, takes, bishop, knight, queen f6, castles. Now the queen is forced to go back, bishop e3. So Asmi castles on the queen side, which Ahaan takes full advantage of. Now he starts his pawns rolling down the board. And here he gets a b pawn also forward. Asmi stops it. Now the c pawn comes forward. So Ahaan is getting the pawn to b5 no matter what. And then rook c8. He is putting more pressure on the queen side where the king is on. Queen c2. c5. Asmi tries to close down the position, but it's not enough. b6. King moves. a6. A very nice move by Ahaan. Completely opening up the position. Pawn takes, rook takes. Queen b7. Rook a1. Rook takes, queen a4. So he is entering through the a file. Queen a5, defending the pawn and threatening rook a7 now, which happens, and it actually wins a piece because this discovered attack gets Ahaan the bishop. Pushes a pawn forward, rook blocks it and takes the bishop, and also loses a queen. Asmi played for a few moves after that. Maybe it will checkmate. I'm not sure. Let's see. Just a matter of this is just very simple, right? Just getting the piece. Here she resigns. So Ahaan just executed a good queenside attack on the opposite side castle king, and that's how he won this game. Fourth round, first round of second day, fourth round. Ahaan is white. He is facing Aryan the Great. E4, E5, knight out, knight out. So we have a Gecko piano with white getting the sender. Black has not played knight f6 yet, so that is a surprise actually. Normally black plays knight f6 instead of d6. So here Ahaan has got the sender and he's going to castle fast. Black has only got knight f6 now. Now h3, bishop d7, queen b3, attacking f7, forcing black to castle. White also castles. But now the b7 pawn is hanging. But if you take there, black will be rook b8 and b2 pawn will fall. Like this wouldn't be a free pawn because rook b8 and then rook will take here. So Ahaan does not, here Aryan defends that threat with b6, queen c2, queen e7, a3, rook e8, rook e1, a5, bishop d3, rook d8, e5. So the advantage of having a good pawn center is you can push them whenever you want. So Ahaan decides this is the right moment to push the pawn, takes, and the knight has to go further back. And that allows bishop h7. And the king side is a little bit broken now. He has also lost a pawn. So white is winning. King moves to the f8. Normally h8 is the better option. f8. Bishop comes back, threatening the knight. Knight moves and takes a pawn. But actually this is another mistake because the knight was also pinned. But I guess there was no way to save it. Oh yeah, there was queen e6. Could have played queen e6 to defend the knight. But then again rook c1 will come. And then there is no defense to this knight. The knight moves and bishop takes rook will happen. So Aryan decides to give up now itself, at least getting a. But here when he took, even the queen is in the way. So black cannot take back the bishop. So he's basically down by a full rook. Queen moves, a4. Ahaan has no hurry in taking the bishop back. He puts the queen there and then the bishop comes back. So Ahaan is up by a full rook here. b5, bishop e2. He's getting the pawn also. Pawn takes, bishop takes, rook takes, bishop takes, queen takes, rook e5. Just very good placement of the pieces. Now he just attacks the f7 square, knight h7, and then rook takes knight. Rook takes, that's a full piece, right? Not a full piece, but it's a rook up and it's a very good simplification. Now the b pawn will promote, and that is how he finishes the game. So this was fourth round. In the fifth round, he faced his toughest opponent, Vaishnavi. Vaishnavi played d4, d5, c4. So it's a queen's gambit. Ahaan plays queen's gambit, declined. Bishop f4, bishop d6, takes, pawn e3. Pawn takes, queen a4, knight c6, queen, bishop takes. Queen b4. So Ahaan decides to exchange of the queens. And the endgame is equal. I don't see any advantage for white or black. Maybe white has some advantage in this position, isn't it? His pieces are more active, and I mean, her pieces are more active and her pawns are also having more control in the center. Pawn h5, knight c2, knight takes, rook takes, h4, h3, king e7, pawn f3, pawn c6, pawn e4, bishop e8, rook d2. So you can see a little bit of maneuvering of the pieces. So Han is preparing to play f6 or f5. Plays knight f6 back, knight goes back, rook d8, rook d1, rook h5. This is a nice move, activating the rook. As you can see, black's position is a little cramped. So all black can do is hold on until Vaishnavi does something on the center, grabbing space or. But here Ahaan goes with rook h5, activating his rook, getting more control of the center squares. d5 played by Vaishnavi, rook d6. Ahaan is not taking the pawn. Pawn takes, rook takes, rook takes, pawn takes, king f2, rook g5. Now you can see a sudden shift in the material. Black's material is focusing on the king side now, the knight and the rook, even the bishop if needed. White's pieces are focused in the center. So whose play is more powerful, we will see now. Bishop b3, knight h5. That knight is heading to f4 where it will have a permanent home because white cannot push the pawn. You will take knight c4, king moves back, defending the pawn with the rook. Bishop f7, knight d6, b5. The pawn was attacked. He moves it. Knight c8 check. King moves to f6. Knight a7. Pawn moves forward. Knight c6. Pawn moves forward. Bishop back. Bishop e8. A very nice move here. Asking the question to the knight. The knight first Vaishnavi gives a check with the pawn. King moves down. And then another check. King moves here. Bishop e4. Making space for the knight on c6. And also preparing bishop c6 herself. Here, so basically this pawn could not be defended. There was no way for Vaishnavi to defend this pawn because knight c6 is not possible. So she had to accept that the position is losing and she tries to hold on here. Rook takes pawn, bishop c6. Of course, Ahaan cannot take because if you take, the knight takes back and it's a fork. You lose material. So, but here Ahaan had a nice move. He could have played knight d3. That knight would have been beautiful on that square. Would even be threatening mate in one. But he misses that. He plays bishop g6, stepping out of that exchange. Now rook d7 check. So he has allowed Vaishnavi to make some threats on the king. Now bishop e4. Bishop takes, rook check, king moves, and then rook takes knight. So Vaishnavi decides to take the knight instead of the bishop. Here Ahaan again has bishop d3. Instead of knight, he can put the bishop on d3. It would have been a great square. So here he misses that again and plays bishop d5. The plans are different, but the other one would have been stronger because after bishop d3 there was rook e2 and then taking all the pawns. So rook takes pawn, pawn c3. So Ahaan has lost the h pawn. Material is now equal. Now c3 comes. Pawn takes, bishop takes. So black already has a pass pawn over here. White has no pass pawn yet. Rook check, king moves. Knight c3, rook c5. Knight moves attacking the bishop. Bishop goes to c4 check. King moves. Pawn a5. Now this pawn is giving white black the advantage. Pawn goes further forward. Rook d4. Pawn forward. This was not good. So generally, when you're playing on the queen side, when you already have a good plan going, you don't want to touch the other side because white wants to make a pass pawn here by playing these moves. That's what white wants. So when you push your pawn forward, you're making that contact point closer. So you're helping white basically. Now it's easier for white to make a pass pawn. She just needs three moves. When the pawn was here, she needed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 moves to create a pass pawn. So this gives away most of his advantage, this move. G4, bishop d5. Here, basically, instead of playing g6, what he could have done was play bishop b3. Attack the knight and then play a3. That would have been a good plan. Okay, g6, bishop pawn moves, bishop d5, attacking the pawn, rook defends it, king g5. This was what Ahaan had in mind when he played g6, I think. Now his king is active, but what the king is actually doing there is another question, because the pawn just moves forward and the king is caught there. He cannot move anywhere, and he's not doing anything other than attacking the pawn, which is already defended. But Ahaan has bishop g2, and he plays it. So he is getting this pawn. So from playing on the queen side, which got stopped by this knight, he has shifted to the king side, and he's winning on that side also. King f2, bishop takes. g4 is also falling, so she pushes g4. Bishop f5, nice square for the bishop. Rook g3, pawn e5. Pawn e5, I don't understand really. What else could have been played in this position? Yeah, I mean it's good. I guess e5 is good. E5 is definitely good. Exchange of that extra pawn. And now he also gets the c pawn. Now the b and a pawns are going to run forward. Rook takes, bishop king takes, knight takes. So he is up by just one pawn, but that is enough to win here because the king is closer. Pawn goes forward. Now they're both in time trouble at this time. Knight check, king takes his pawn, and by the time white takes this guy, white knight has to stay there. And by the time white takes it, the black pawn would be going forward. Now he is threatening pawn forward. He does it. He takes, and now it's an easy win. Right? He just bring the bishop back, using the king, push the pawn forward. That's what happens. Here she actually loses on time. Did Vaishnavi. Last round, he had another long game. This was another good fight from Aditya. E4, E5, knight out. Ahaan was white. We have a Giko piano with the same opening he used in one of the previous rounds. All normal. This time, his opponent plays Aditya plays Queen D7 instead of Bishop B7, which is a much better move. Pawn F6, immediately challenging this pawn. Knight takes, but he did not see the threat to the pawn. So Aditya had to play knight takes knight. So Han gets a nice position. He's up 2 pawns. Up by 2 pawns. He could not have asked for more. But the only problem was king cannot castle. So Aditya took the chance to stop Ahaan from castling. Now rook c6, rook f6, takes, knight f3. So this looks harmless, but here Ahaan has given some of his advantage back because suddenly Aditya gets a rook into the game. And now rook e to check. And he loses 1 pawn. Black has only got 2 pieces, but they're both very active. So he moves to defensive mode now. Knight to e1, complete defense, holding on. a3, h4, just clearing of the second rank from clearing the pawns of the second rank. b3, pawn forward. Now Aditya makes a blunder. It's a difficult thing to see what white could do after that. Here he should have played rook a3, and white is only good way to stop the threat to this pawn, and that is knight c2. This was still winning for Ahaan, but this was Aditya's best option. But instead he played rook a1, planning some action on this side. But the problem with rook a1 is the rook gets trapped here, and Ahaan finds the move, king b2. After that, it was just a simple finish. Just normal moves. He's basically a full rook up. Now he exchanges, then gives the rook up because he's getting the queen, he's getting a second queen, and does checkmate with the 2 queens. So this was Ahaan's tournament. He did not face much resistance from his opponents most of the tournament. There was round 5 where he faced Vaishnavi and round 6 Aditya. These were the 2 games where he had good resistance and he came through it, and that is why he became the champion.